I'm sure everyone has heard from time to time arguments about the stories of the Nativity that we have from Scripture. We have two accounts of the Nativity, from St Matthew and St Luke, and they are different accounts. And some people use this sometimes to argue that they can't possibly be accurate, that they're contradictory. But I'm sure everyone knows how to address this argument, because St Luke at the very beginning of his Gospel points out that he knows perfectly well that there are other accounts of Christ's life. So he knows that he's providing additional details. So the differences between the story as St Matthew presents it to us and the story as St Luke presents it to us aren't contradictions, they're complementary to each other. One gives us the story of the coming of the Magi, the wise men from afar, and that hints to us about the inclusivity of Christianity that is not confined to the space of Judaism, to Jesus' own tradition, but it is wider and more international, more open than that. The other tells us about the shepherds, humble people. Jesus comes for them, not just for the rich and the famous. He comes for the shepherds, for the ordinary people. And so these two accounts work very well together. But the other thing that's interesting is that of the four canonical Gospels that we have now established as part of our Bible, only two actually give us nativity stories. You may have noticed that the other two, St Mark and St John, start in a very different way. And it's very interesting, I think, because St Mark is believed to be the earliest of the Gospels written down, while St John's is believed to be the latest. It's believed that St Mark's Gospel was written down in about the last quarter of the first century of our era, so not very long after Jesus lived. But St John's Gospel may not have been committed to paper until nearly 200 years later. So there's quite a wide gap between them. And yet they both begin, in a sense, in the same way. They both start by referring to a beginning. St Mark refers to the beginning of the gospel story of Jesus. But he does that in the context of the prophets of the Old Testament. There's a direct reference to Isaiah. And in addition to that, within the first 3 verses of his Gospel, Mark manages to pack in a quotation from Isaiah and one from another of the prophets from Malachi. So he's telling us this new story, a story of a new beginning, a story of a fresh start, but one which is rooted in old tradition, but moving forward into the future, giving us time to begin again. We're familiar, of course, with the magnificent words of the beginning of St John's Gospel. In the beginning was the Word. Now this is an interesting concept. Most people know, I think, that the word here is Greek logos, and this comes from Greek philosophy, and it has a meaning that would have been well known to people of the time about the relationship between divinity and creation. And St John uses this in a very interesting way. He extends this into the Christian message, and in this way he integrates another set of ideas. Greek philosophy and Christianity, the new developing religion, are here sharing their concepts and developing these together. This is indeed a new beginning for all of us, a beginning that we can reflect on and think about how we can realise it in our own lives as we consider the idea of the Nativity.